Broadcasting live from the Albay PIO News Center, providing you the most exclusive news update from all over the province. This is News at 12. In the local scene, the United Nations Population Fund will provide reproductive health assistance to families displaced by the unrest of Mayon volcano. UNFPA, represented by Gender-Based Violence and Emergencies Analyst Ila Escurel, met with Provincial Administrator Raul Rizal to finalize support for women and girls staying in evacuation centers. The agency will distribute dignity kits and maternity packs to identified sites in Malilipot and Tabaco City. The assistance aimed to address urgent hygiene, protection, and maternal health needs of displaced women. It will also provide sexual and reproductive health kits, including clinical delivery supplies to strengthen maternal and newborn care services at Dr. Lorenzo P. Ziga Memorial District Hospital. Provincial officials said the intervention is part of the continuing humanitarian response for vulnerable families affected by volcano activity. Authorities add that close coordination remains crucial as the province continues to monitor the condition of evacuees. In other story, the Sangguniang Panlalawigan of Albay has endorsed a municipal ordinance creating new plantilla positions at Pulangi Community College. The measure establishes additional permanent posts, sets qualification standards, defines duties, and allocates the required budget. Officials said the move strengthens the college's academic and organizational capacity by ensuring a stable and professional workforce. New positions include associate professor, assistant professor, instructor, librarian, and computer programmer. The provincial board notes that the roles support Pulangi's goal of delivering accessible and quality tertiary education. Funding for salaries, allowances, and benefits has been identified and will be integrated into the annual budgets of both the college and the municipality in line with the local government code. The endorsement was formalized through a resolution declaring the ordinance valid and operative. In other news, young learners in Albay are discovering Baybayin through a hands-on art workshop at the National Museum of the Philippines in Albay. The activity is held in collaboration with the Daraga Tourism Culture and Arts Office and the Provincial Tourism Culture and Arts Office. Participants are learning to read and write the ancient Filipino script while applying it creatively in guided sessions led by cultural educator and tattoo artist Jeff Marunilla Seva Quintano. Local artists and community members are also taking part to deepen appreciation of Baybayin and its cultural value. Organizers said the workshop aims to empower the youth to help preserve Filipino heritage. The Baybayin Art Workshop runs until March 7 and is open to the public. In the national scene, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources has opened forest lands to private partners and other groups for up to 50 years under a new policy aimed at protecting forests while creating thousands of green jobs. Environment Secretary Rafael Lotila said the Sustainable Forest Land Management Agreement issued through Administrative Order 2025-22 will grant qualified partners 25-year management rights, renewable for another 25 years, in line with the development agenda of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. The agreement simplifies and unifies long-standing and fragmented forest tenure rules, making it easier for cooperatives, people's groups, local businesses, and private firms to invest in forest-based industries. Officials said the policy is expected to generate jobs in agroforestry, ecotourism, forest plantations, non-timber forest products, and sustainable pasture development, while encouraging partners to protect existing forest cover and restore damaged lands. Arthur Fabricella of the DNR's Forest Management Bureau said the long-term arrangement will give upland families security and stability, allowing them to build forest enterprises and strengthen environmental protection efforts for future generations. In other story, the Senate is discussing possible action against Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa over his extended absence from sessions, amid reports that the International Criminal Court may issue an arrest warrant against him. Senate President pro tempore Panfilo Lacson said there is no agreement yet on what steps to take, noting that while Senate rules remove committee membership for repeated absences, there are no clear rules covering continuous absence from plenary sessions. Lacson also said former Senator Antonio Trillanes IV is expected to file an ethics complaint against de la Rosa over his repeated absences. On the issue of a possible arrest, Lacson said lawmakers are protected from arrest for crimes punishable by 6 years or less while Congress is in session, but this protection would end once Congress adjourns. He added that any international arrest warrants should still pass through local courts for proper orders, and said only the Supreme Court can give a final interpretation of the Constitution on such matters. In other news, Philippine National Police Chief, Police General Jose Melencio Nartates Jr. on Saturday pledged major reforms at the Philippine National Police Academy, saying the school must be strengthened as the main training ground for future police leaders. Speaking at the Philippine Military Academy Alumni Homecoming in Baguio City, Nartates, a member of PMA Class 1992 and the last PMA batch to join the police service, said he wants to leave behind a safer and more professional organization when he retires. Under current law, most police officers are trained at the PNPA, while PMA graduates are commissioned into the military, prompting Nartates to focus his reform plans on improving the police academy's training standards and systems. He said that although the PNPA received hundreds of millions of pesos in funding in the past years, some projects were not carried out properly, and the academy still lacks a clear staffing structure for civilian employees and instructors. Nartates added that he has coordinated with the Department of the Interior and local government to support improvements at the PNPA and Police's Special Action Force, stressing that strong leadership within the PNP remains in place but must be guided and motivated effectively. And in the news outside the country, several Arab nations on Saturday condemned comments by U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee, who suggested Israel a biblical right to a large area of the Middle East. Huckabee, a former Baptist minister and strong supporter of Israel, made the remarks during a podcast with conservative commentator Tucker Carlson. He referred to a Bible verse interpreted by some as granting Israel land between Egypt's Nile River and the Euphrates. Saudi Arabia labeled the statement reckless and irresponsible. Jordan called it an attack on regional sovereignty, and Kuwait and Oman said it violated international law and threatened peace. Egypt's foreign ministry affirmed that Israel has no sovereignty over Palestinian or other Arab territories, and the Palestinian Authority said the comment contradicted U.S. policy against West Bank annexation. Huckabee later clarified other points from the interview on X, but did not address the biblical landmark. Another story, Lebanon reported that Israeli strikes on the east and south killed at least 8 people, with Israel saying the targets were Hezbollah and Hamas militants. A Hezbollah source said a senior military leader was among those killed in the Bekaa Valley strikes. An Israeli strike earlier hit the Ain el-Helwi Palestinian refugee camp, killing 2 people, with Israel stating it targeted a Hamas command center. Tensions continue as Israel maintains strikes despite a 2024 ceasefire, while Lebanon is working to disarm Hezbollah near the border. And finally, in the news outside the country, with reference to the Philippines, a historic first. A delegation from the Philippine Air Force attended a public affairs workshop hosted by the United States Air Force Reserve Command from February 16 to 20, 2026. The delegation was led by Colonel Michael Mikey Romero of the Philippine Air Force Reserve and Colonel Maria Cristina O. Basco, Chief of the Air Force Public Affairs Office. Their participation marks the first time Philippine Air Force reservists and public affairs leaders joined a professional workshop at a U.S. Space Force installation. The workshop underscored the strong defense alliance between the Philippines and the United States and aimed to boost interoperability and strategic communication between allied forces. Other members of the Philippine delegation included Lieutenant Colonel Paulino Antonio T. Lumolhol, Lieutenant Colonel Floreto E. Solano, Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Betancourt, and Sergeant Kenneth A. Madali. The bilateral engagement allowed U.S. and Philippine Air Force personnel to share best practices in media, crisis response, and strategic messaging, strengthening international military partnerships. That's in the news at 12, February 23, 2026. We'll be back tomorrow for more news updates. And thanks to our news writer, Albay PIO and Naomi Ruth Hernandez. And on the technical side, Chad Bobis. And our Provincial Information Officer, OIC, Marty Gonzalez. And under the supervision of our Governor, Noel Iruzal, I am Greg Hallare. Thank you for subscribing. Albay in my heart.